Darren sat at the control chair of the small human ship Wayfarer. The ship was old but strong, built for long travel across deep space. Its crew of 5 humans trusted it because it had never failed them before. They had been searching for trade routes in a quiet sector of the galaxy, but the journey had been slow and uneventful. Everyone was restless. That was when the signal came. It started as a low beep through the comm system, a weak sound that seemed broken. The message repeated again and again, as if someone had left it playing for ages. The ship's computer could not identify the source at first. It was old, very old, and carried pieces of code that no modern system used anymore. Darren leaned closer to the screen, watching the strange signal scroll across in thin lines of static. "Where is it coming from?" asked Myra, the navigator. She was young and quick, always curious about the unknown. Darren shook his head. "Not sure yet. The code is buried under heavy distortion. Looks like it's been traveling through space for centuries." The engineer, Bram, frowned from his seat. "Could be nothing but noise. We waste time if we chase it. Better to stay on course for the colonies." But Darren did not agree. He had felt something in the signal, something more than random sound. He told Myra to run it again. She pressed a few keys, cleaning the feed, and then the sound shifted. From the speakers came a broken voice, speaking in a tongue that none of them recognized. The words were faint, like whispers from the dead. Then an image appeared. The screen flickered, and a shape formed in pale light. It was a hall, tall and wide, filled with shadows. At the far end was a throne of black stone, and around it lay the remains of enormous bodies. The skeletons were twisted and huge, like giants that had fallen in some long battle. The crew went silent. No one spoke for a full minute. "What is this place?" Myra asked softly. Darren leaned closer, his eyes hard. "Looks like a throne room. And those skeletons, they are not human." The signal ended there, only to repeat again, showing the same throne room, the same crown of bones. Bram rubbed his chin. This could be dangerous. Maybe a trap left by raiders. Or maybe just some lost ruin. Either way, we should not waste time. But another voice rose from the corner. Leanne, the ship's medic, spoke calmly. "If it is ancient, it might hold knowledge. Every ruin has history, and history carries warning. Should we ignore it?" The 5th crew member, a quiet man named Solon, finally said, "We are explorers. If we turn away from mystery, then what are we? Traders with no spirit." Darren listened to them all, but his heart was already decided. The signal had called to him. He felt it deep inside, as if it was meant for humans to find. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps it was everything. He stood. "We follow it. Set course for the source. No arguments." The crew exchanged worried looks, but no one spoke against him. Myra nodded and began plotting the new route. The journey took 3 days. The ship flew through silent space, past dead stars and frozen comets. The closer they came, the weaker the signal grew, but it never fully vanished. On the 3rd day, the Wayfarer reached the edge of a system with a single planet circling a dying sun. The planet was dark and cracked, its surface covered in ash. No lights, no cities, no sound. Only silence and dust. Yet from beneath that dust, the signal still rose. The crew gathered at the viewing window as the ship descended. Ruins stretched across the land, wide and broken. Towers lay in pieces, their stones scorched as if fire had torn through them long ago. Between the towers lay bones, giant bones, white and sharp against the gray earth. "This place is dead," Bram muttered. "Completely dead." "Not dead enough," Solon answered quietly, staring at the ruins. The Wayfarer landed near the largest structure. It was half buried, but parts of it still stood tall, proud even in ruin. A palace, Darren thought. The same one shown in the signal. The air was thin but breathable, so they stepped outside with light gear. The ground crunched beneath their boots. No wind blew, no birds sang, no water moved. Only silence, heavy and endless. They walked together toward the palace. Its gates were tall, carved with figures locked in battle. Humans were among them. The carvings showed men and women standing against giant beings with spears and blades. The stone was scarred but the images were clear. Darren ran his hand across one carving. "These are humans," he whispered. "This place remembers us." The others stared at him, uneasy. Inside, the halls were long and empty, dust thick on the floor. Bones lay scattered across the stones, some small, some massive. The walls bore more carvings, more scenes of war. Humans facing giants, humans standing over fallen kings. Finally, they reached a wide chamber. The doors were cracked but still strong. Beyond them was the throne room from the signal. The crew stopped at the threshold. The throne sat at the far end, black and sharp, made of metal that did not shine. Upon it rested a figure, tall and skeletal, still wearing a crown. Around the throne lay piles of bones, broken weapons, and torn banners. Myra whispered, "This is it. The room from the message." Darren's chest tightened. Something about the place felt alive, though it was filled only with the dead. He stepped forward, his voice low. "We came for answers. Let us see if they are here." The air inside the ruined palace was thin and dry, as if the breath of the world had been stolen long ago. Dust floated in the shafts of weak light that slipped through cracks in the high ceiling. Every step the crew took stirred the silence, their boots leaving prints across stone that had not felt movement for centuries. Darren led the way, his hand resting on the grip of his side tool, though he doubted it would help if danger waited here. Behind him walked Myra, holding a scanner that flickered with strange readings. Bram followed, muttering under his breath, while Leanne and Solon kept their eyes sharp, watching every shadow. "This place is older than anything we have seen," Myra whispered, her voice echoing faintly against the tall walls. "The stones are not natural. They are fused, as if shaped by heat greater than fire. Or by weapons," Bram grumbled. "This looks like a battlefield frozen in time. I do not like it." But Darren was not listening to Bram's fears. His eyes were fixed on the carvings and broken banners that lined the walls. Everywhere, the same story repeated: giant beings, proud and armored, clashing with human warriors. Though the giants were larger, the carvings often showed humans standing victorious in the end. He felt a chill. These ruins did not belong to humans, yet they remembered humanity. Why? The crew reached a vast courtyard inside the palace. The roof here had fallen away, leaving the open sky above. The grey sun hung low, weak and dying, casting a pale light over the ruins. Across the courtyard were rows of statues, most of them broken. They depicted tall kings and queens of the giant race, each with long limbs and crowned heads. Their faces were proud but stern. At the center of the courtyard lay a fountain long dry. Around it were skeletons, some half buried in dust. Many still held broken weapons in their bony hands. This was not only a palace, Leanne said softly. It was a place of death. They moved forward, passing under a high arch. Beyond it stretched the grand hall, a path leading toward the throne room. The stones here were blackened as if scorched by terrible fire. Weapons lay scattered across the ground, rusted and ancient. Some were too large for humans to wield, clearly belonging to the giant race that had once ruled here. Solon bent and picked up a blade that had snapped in half. Its weight was heavy even in his strong hands. "They fought hard," he said. "But against who? Why do the carvings always show humans here?" No one answered. The question hung heavy in the air. As they drew closer to the throne room, Myra's scanner began to beep. Strange energy pulsed through the walls, faint but steady, like a heartbeat trapped in stone. "It's the same signature as the signal," she said. "It's coming from ahead." Bram looked uneasy. "Then something is still alive here." They entered the great hall. The ceiling soared high above them, supported by tall pillars carved with spirals of fire and war. More bones littered the ground, some small, others towering. At times, the crew had to step carefully to avoid disturbing them. The silence grew deeper, pressing on their ears. At the far end of the hall, the throne room doors loomed. They were massive, made of black iron etched with strange symbols. Though cracked, they still stood strong, as if guarding what lay beyond. The crew stopped in front of them. None spoke at first. The weight of the place was crushing, as if unseen eyes watched from every corner. Darren finally placed his hand against the door. It was cold, colder than any stone should be. "This is it," he said. "The place the message showed us." Myra glanced at him. "Do we open it?" "Once we cross, there is no turning back." Bram shook his head quickly. "We should leave now. We came, we saw, and that is enough. Whatever is in there is not for us." But Solon stepped forward. "If it called us, then it wanted humans to see it. That means it is meant for us. If we turn away now, we may never understand what this world wants to tell us." Lian's calm voice followed. "Knowledge is never safe. But ignorance is far more dangerous." "I agree with Solon. We must enter." Darren looked at his crew one by one. He could see the fear in Bram's eyes, the caution in Myra's, the resolve in Solon's, and the quiet strength in Lian's. Then he turned back to the door. He pressed both hands against it and pushed. The iron groaned, heavy and reluctant, but slowly it gave way. Dust rained down as the door opened, revealing the chamber within. The throne room stretched wide, its ceiling lost in shadow. Torches lined the walls, though they had no flame. Instead, faint blue light pulsed inside them, giving the chamber an eerie glow. The air was colder here, and the silence sharper. And at the far end, as the message had shown, sat the throne. It was carved from black stone, tall and jagged, as if cut from the heart of a mountain. Around it were piles of bones, some laid carefully, others thrown as if in rage. Banners of faded cloth hung limp, their colors long gone. Upon the throne rested a skeleton unlike the others. It was larger, its bones thick and heavy. A crown of dark metal sat on its skull, glowing faintly with the same blue light as the torches. Its bony hands rested on the arms of the throne, as though it still ruled even in death. The crew froze at the sight. Myra whispered, "That is the Skeleton King." As if hearing her words, the torches along the walls flared brighter. The blue light grew strong, filling the hall with an unearthly glow. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Darren felt his heart pound. His eyes locked on the skeleton's empty sockets. For a moment, he thought he saw sparks of light deep within them. "Not dead," Solon breathed. "It is waiting." The throne room seemed to breathe with them, alive though filled with death. Every shadow pressed closer, every sound held meaning. Darren took one slow step forward, his voice steady though his chest was tight. "We came for answers. Show us why you called us." The Skeleton King did not move, but the glow from the crown pulsed, like a heartbeat returning after ages of silence. The crew stood in awe and fear, knowing they had crossed into a place where history was not finished. The throne waited. The throne room stretched into darkness, tall as a canyon, wide as a plain. The blue glow of the strange torches painted everything in cold light. Bones lay across the stone floor like fallen leaves, and the black throne stood tall at the far end, waiting as it had for ages. The Skeleton King sat upon it, unmoving, crown faintly glowing. The crew of the Wayfarers stood frozen at the threshold. None of them wanted to step closer, yet none could turn away. Darren finally moved. His boots scraped the stone as he took a step forward. "We came here because of your signal," he said, voice steady though his throat felt dry. "If you are alive, speak to us." The silence stretched. Only the low hum of the torches filled the air. Then, faint and broken, a voice drifted across the chamber. It was not sound as humans knew, but more like a whisper pressing directly into their minds. "At last," it said, slow and heavy. "At last, humans return." The crew stiffened. Myra gripped her scanner tighter, Bram's hand hovered near his tool, and Solin's eyes narrowed with focus. Leanne whispered, "It speaks to us." The Skeleton King's skull tilted slightly, the faint blue sparks within its sockets glowing brighter. The crown on its head pulsed with light. "You crossed the void," the voice said. "You stepped into the Palace of Bones. Do you know who I am?" Darren shook his head. "No. But we came to learn." The figure leaned forward, joints creaking like old wood. Though it moved slowly, the weight of its presence filled the chamber. "I am the last ruler of my kind. My body is dust, my blood long gone. Yet the throne binds me. They named me king when fire fell and war ended. I have waited for the day when humans would stand before me again." The crew exchanged tense glances. None of them understood why humans were tied to this place. "Why us?" Darren asked carefully. "Why call for humans?" The voice deepened, carrying sorrow. "Because it was humans who ended us. It was humans who stood against my people when no other dared. You broke us. You shattered our empire. And in that destruction, you won our respect." The words struck the crew like a storm. Myra gasped, Bram muttered in disbelief, and even Solon frowned in confusion. "That cannot be," Bram said. "Humans only left Earth a few centuries ago. We had no fleet strong enough to fight giants like you." But the Skeleton King raised a bony hand, pointing at the carvings on the walls. "Your history is not whole. There were wars before your records. Long before your colonies, humans crossed the stars in ships of fire. They fought us. They bled. And in the end, they triumphed. My throne is proof." Darren looked at the carvings again. The scenes of humans fighting giants no longer felt like stories. They felt like memories carved in stone. Could it be true? Could humans have once ruled the stars, only to forget? The king's voice grew softer, like wind through bones. "For ages I have sat here, held by chains of oath and curse. I swore I would not rest until a human stood before me. Now you are here. Now the last thread of time is cut." The air grew colder. The torches flickered. Myra whispered, "What do you want from us?" The king turned his skull toward her. "I want what I waited for. I want to pass my throne to a human who proves worthy. Only then will my bones find peace." The crew stood in shock. Darren's chest tightened. He had not expected this. He had thought the signal would lead to ruins, maybe knowledge, maybe treasure, but not to a dying king asking for a successor. Bram shook his head firmly. "No. This is madness. We are explorers, not rulers of the dead. We should leave this cursed place." But Solon stepped forward, his eyes steady. "What if this is not a curse but a test? If we refuse, what will become of this world, and of us?" The Skeleton King slowly rose from the throne. The sound of shifting bones filled the chamber. He stood taller than any human, his skull nearly brushing the high shadows above. His crown blazed brighter now, casting long, sharp shadows across the walls. "Not all may claim my throne," the voice said. "Only one who carries both courage and mercy. Many of my kind were mighty, yet they fell because they held only pride. A human must show me what my people could not." Darren swallowed hard. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was no simple choice. The king had power still, even in death. To refuse could mean danger. To accept could mean chains. What must we do? He asked. The king raised his hand, and the ground shook. From the piles of bones around the hall, shapes began to stir. Skeletons of fallen warriors rose slowly, weapons still in their hands. Their empty eyes glowed faintly as they formed ranks across the chamber. Myra gasped and stepped back. Bram cursed under his breath. Leanne steadied herself, gripping her small pack as if ready to tend wounds. The king's voice thundered. You will walk my hall. You will face my army. Not with blades, not with fire, but with spirit. Show me if humans still carry the strength that ended empires. Show me if your heart is greater than your fear. The skeletal soldiers raised their weapons, waiting. The hall shook as if alive. Darren looked at his crew. Their faces showed fear, but also trust. He knew then that the test was not only for him but for all of them. He stepped forward toward the long path that led to the throne. We will face your trial, he said firmly. The skeleton king lowered his head, the crown blazing. Then let the trial begin. The skeletal army moved, their bones clattering, their weapons gleaming faintly in the blue light. The air filled with the sound of death returning to motion. Darren's heart pounded, but he did not step back. He walked forward, his crew close behind him, toward the trial that would decide if humans were worthy of the throne of bones. The throne room echoed with the sound of their steps, the living walking among the dead. The floor of the throne room shook as the skeleton king's soldiers formed their line. Bones rattled like drums of war, echoing against the tall stone walls. The blue light from the crown pulsed brighter with every heartbeat of silence. Darren stood at the front of his crew, staring at the endless rows of skeletal warriors. Their weapons glinted faintly in the strange glow. He could hear Myra breathing fast behind him, Bram muttering in fear, Leanne whispering a quiet prayer, and Solon standing calm though his fists were tight. The skeleton king's voice carried across the chamber. The trial of bones begins. Walk the path to my throne. If you reach me, you prove yourselves worthy. If you fall, you are forgotten. The army stepped forward once, their boots of bone striking the floor in perfect rhythm. The sound filled the hall like thunder. Darren's heart pounded. He had fought storms, machines, and the long silence of space, but never this. Still, he lifted his chin. We walk together, he said to his crew. No one stands alone. They nodded. Even Bram, though fear clouded his eyes, stepped closer. They began walking the long path toward the throne. The skeletal army shifted, weapons rising, ready to strike. Darren raised his hand. Wait, he called. His voice echoed. The skeletons froze, still as stone. The king tilted his skull, as if curious. Your people fought ours, Darren said. His voice was firm though his chest was tight. You say humans ended your empire. If that is true, then we did not fight for glory or power. We fought to survive. We fought because we had no choice. If this is a trial, it must be more than war. For a moment, silence pressed heavy on the chamber. Then the skeleton king's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Words will not save you. Only spirit. Continue. The army moved again. Swords of bone and rusted steel rose high, axes gleamed faintly, shields slammed together in unison. Darren felt Myra grip his arm. What do? We cannot fight them all. Then we will not fight, Darren said. His voice surprised even himself. The soldiers marched closer. The glow of their eyes was cold and endless. Darren stepped forward, spreading his arms wide. We are not here as conquerors, he shouted. We are not your enemies. We are explorers. We carry the memory of those who came before us, even if time has buried it. If humans once destroyed your people, then today we honor them by remembering. We will not fight the dead. We will walk among them as equals. The army paused. Weapons lowered slightly. The torches flickered. The skeleton king's skull turned, the crown glowing brighter. His voice was low but sharp. You speak with courage, but words are air. Show me with steps. Show me with silence. Darren nodded. He motioned for his crew to follow. Slowly, they walked down the center of the path, straight toward the throne. The skeletal warriors stood on both sides, unmoving, their hollow eyes watching. The sound of the humans' boots echoed in the silence. Every step felt heavy, as if the weight of history pressed on their shoulders. Darren kept his eyes forward. He could feel the fear rising in his crew, but he would not let it break them. At one point, a skeleton moved suddenly, raising its blade. Myra gasped, but Darren lifted his hand calmly. We do not fight you, he said. We honor you. The skeleton froze, then lowered its weapon slowly, returning to stillness. One by one, the warriors bowed their heads as the humans passed. The glow in their eyes dimmed, then faded, until only dark sockets remained. Leanne whispered, her voice shaking, they are listening. They are hearing us. Step by step, the army fell silent. When Darren and his crew finally reached the base of the throne, the last skeleton lowered its weapon and crumbled back into bones. The hall grew still once more. The skeleton king sat tall, his crown blazing with light. His hollow eyes burned brighter than ever. You chose not to fight. You chose to speak. Few of my kind would have done the same. Perhaps this is the strength of humans. Darren stood before him, his crew at his side. We are not perfect. But we endure. That is what makes us strong. The king's voice grew softer. Endure. Yes. That was the word my people forgot. We sought conquest, and in it, we found ruin. You remind me of what we lost. He leaned forward, the weight of centuries in his words. Hear me, human. I am bound to this throne. My spirit cannot rest until the crown is passed. But to wear it is no gift. It is a burden. It carries the memory of empires, the sorrow of countless wars. If you accept, you will never be the same. Myra whispered, Darren, don't. Her voice trembled with fear. Bram shook his head. It is a curse. Leave it. Let the dead keep their dead. But Solon's eyes shone with quiet fire. Knowledge is never free. But maybe this burden is meant for us. Maybe this is why humans were called here. The skeleton king extended his bony hand. The crown lifted from his skull, floating in the air, glowing brighter and brighter. Choose, the king said. Take it, and rule the legacy of the fallen. Refuse, and leave this place empty once more. But know this, if you walk away, the past will sleep forever, and the truth of what humans once were will remain buried. The crown hovered before Darren, heavy though it did not touch him. The glow bathed his face in blue light. He could feel its weight in his chest, its history pressing against his mind. He looked back at his crew. Myra's eyes begged him not to take it. Bram's face showed only fear. Leanne's gaze was calm but sorrowful. Solon's was steady, full of trust. Darren turned back to the king. His voice was quiet but firm. If I take it, what will happen to you? The skeleton king's voice was like wind fading. Then I will rest. My bones will fall, and the throne will be yours. My curse will end. The chamber grew silent again. Only the hum of the crown filled the air. Darren lifted his hand slowly, reaching toward the floating crown. The skeleton king lowered his head. Then the bargain is made. The crown floated in the air between Darren and the skeleton king. Its glow pulsed like a slow heartbeat, sending waves of blue light across the vast chamber. Every flicker made the carvings on the wall seem alive, as if warriors and giants still fought in the stone. Darren's hand hovered close, but something in him hesitated. The crown was not only a symbol. It was power, memory, and chains all at once. He felt it calling to him, yet also warning him. The Skeleton King's hollow voice filled the hall. Before you take what I offer, you must prove yourself. Words are strong, but spirit must be stronger. The throne is not won by claim. It is won by trial. Darren lowered his hand slowly. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed firm. Then tell me the trial. The king raised both arms. The ground rumbled, and the piles of bones scattered around the hall began to shift. One after another, skeletons rose from the dust. They were tall, armored, and armed with swords, shields, and spears. The clatter of bones echoed like drums of war. Myra gasped, gripping her scanner to her chest. Bram stumbled back, eyes wide. Leanne steadied herself, ready though afraid. Solon clenched his fists, standing close to Darren. The Skeleton King's voice thundered. This is the trial of bones. You will walk the path to the throne. My army will rise against you. Strike them if you wish, but know this: the throne is not won by strength alone. It is won by the heart. Show me why humans endure. Show me why you must carry what my people could not. The skeleton warriors spread out, forming two lines down the long hall, leaving a narrow path between them. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly as they raised their weapons. Darren felt the weight of every eye, living and dead, on him. He turned to his crew. Listen. We cannot win this by fighting. There are too many. But maybe we can win by showing who we are. Bram shook his head quickly. You are mad. If we walk through them unarmed, we die. Then you can stay, Darren said firmly. But I will walk. And I will not raise my hand against them. Solon nodded without hesitation. I will walk with you. Leanne placed a hand over her heart. So will I. Myra hesitated, fear plain in her eyes, but then she swallowed hard and stepped closer. If you go, I go. Bram stared at them all, then muttered, Fools. All of you. Yet even as he cursed, he shuffled into line, unwilling to be left behind. Darren faced the path. His chest felt heavy, but his steps were steady. Then let us begin. He walked forward, his crew following close behind. The first skeletons shifted as they drew near, raising weapons high. The sound of blades scraping against shields filled the air. Darren lifted his hands, palms open, showing no weapon. We do not fight you, he said. His voice echoed strong. You are warriors who fell long ago. We honor you. We walk in peace. The skeletons paused. Their hollow eyes flickered. Then, slowly, they lowered their weapons and stepped aside, clearing the way. The crew moved forward. But the trial was not over. At the next line of soldiers, a giant skeleton stepped into their path, taller than 3 men, its sword as long as a ship's mast. It slammed the blade down across the stone, blocking the way. Bram froze. We are dead. Darren stood firm. His voice did not shake. We will not fight you either. You may be strong, but strength is not what keeps us alive. We survive because we stand together. Strike us if you must, but know this: we walk not for conquest but for memory. The giant skeleton raised its sword high. Myra cried out and shielded her face. But instead of falling, the blade froze in the air. Slowly, the giant lowered the weapon, pressing its tip into the ground. Then it knelt, bowing low before the humans. The path opened. Leanne whispered, awe in her voice, they listen. They are testing not our hands, but our hearts. Step by step, they moved forward. More skeletons rose in their way, some with spears, others with shields locked in a wall. Each time, Darren refused to fight. He spoke with calm and courage, and each time, the soldiers lowered their weapons and faded into dust, their glow fading as if set free. The crew's fear slowly shifted into wonder. Even Bram, though still trembling, could not deny what he saw. Finally, they reached the last stretch before the throne. Here the skeletons were many, gathered in a great circle, weapons raised in silence. The skeleton king's voice filled the chamber again. One last step remains. My warriors bow to courage, but the throne bows only to truth. Speak now, human. Why should you carry the crown? Why should my people's memory pass to yours? Daron's throat felt dry. He stood still, the circle of skeletal soldiers watching with empty eyes. He thought of Earth, small and fragile. He thought of his crew, tired but loyal. He thought of humanity itself, scattered across the stars, never the strongest, never the most advanced, but always enduring. His voice rose, clear and steady. Because we are not perfect. Because we are weak, and yet we rise. We fight not to rule but to live. We remember our dead, even when time tries to bury them. We endure storms, silence, and fire, yet we stand again and again. That is what makes us human. That is why the crown should pass to us. The silence stretched. Then the skeletons began to lower their weapons one by one. The glow in their eyes dimmed. One after another, they crumbled back into dust, leaving only empty bones behind. The circle broke. The path cleared. The skeleton king leaned forward on his throne. His crown blazed like a star. You have spoken with courage and mercy. You have shown spirit stronger than fear. The trial is complete. His bony hand lifted. The crown rose once more, glowing brighter than ever. Step forward, human, he said. Claim what is now yours. Daron walked to the base of the throne. The glow bathed him in light. His crew stood close, their faces filled with awe and fear. The skeleton king's hollow eyes burned like twin fires. His voice was softer now, almost weary. With this crown, you will carry the memory of my people. You will carry their triumphs and their failures. The burden is heavy, but it is yours, if you will take it. Daron reached out. His hand closed around the crown. The light surged, filling the hall, shaking the stones, making the carvings blaze as if alive. The skeleton king's body trembled. At last, the voice whispered. At last, I rest. The crown in Daron's hand burned with light, yet it did not hurt him. The glow wrapped around his fingers like warm fire, pulsing with life. He felt as if countless voices whispered through the metal, not loud, but soft, like the murmur of waves. They were voices of warriors, kings, farmers, children and entire people whose memory had been locked inside the crown for ages. The skeleton king sat back on his throne, his empty chest rising and falling with a sound like wind through stone. You carry it now, he said. The bond is made. The voices you hear are my people. They are yours to protect. Daron bowed his head. I will carry them with honor. Behind him, his crew stood in silence. None dared speak, though their eyes were wide with wonder and fear. Solon clenched his fists, as if proud of Daron but also aware of the burden. Leanne pressed her hand over her chest, whispering a quiet word of respect. Myra stared at the crown, her fear slowly turning to awe. Even Bram, who usually muttered doubts, stood silent, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the throne. The skeleton king raised one bony hand and pointed at the great stone walls around them. This place was once filled with laughter, song, and the sound of life. Now it is only silence. But through you, human, the silence will end. The memory will live. The carvings on the walls glowed faintly in answer to his words, as if remembering their past. Suddenly, the hall shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The flames burning in the braziers flickered wildly. Myra gasped. What is happening? The skeleton king's voice grew weaker. My duty is almost finished. I remained all these years to guard the crown until one worthy came. You are that one. With you here, my watch ends. His bones began to crack, pieces breaking and falling to the floor. The golden glow in his hollow eyes dimmed. Yet his voice still carried across the chamber. But know this. With the gift comes danger. Many will seek the crown. They will hear whispers of its power, and they will come. You must be ready. Darren's grip tightened on the crown. We will not let it be taken. The Skeleton King seemed to smile, though he had no lips. That is why it chose you. Not because you are strongest, but because you endure. You walk with mercy. You carry others with you. That is the way of true kingship. The shaking grew stronger. The very stones of the throne cracked, lines of light splitting across the floor. The Skeleton King's frame sagged deeper into the seat. His voice grew faint, like a wind fading into the distance. I give you one last gift. The throne holds power not only of memory but of guidance. When you are lost, when the stars grow dark, sit upon it. The voices will answer. They will not command you, but they will remind you of who you are. His hand fell to his side, the bones scattering. His crownless skull tilted, and the golden fire in his eyes flickered one last time before vanishing. The Skeleton King was gone. For a moment, the hall was utterly silent. The throne stood empty, cracked but glowing faintly as if holding the last trace of its master. The crew stood frozen, uncertain if they had just witnessed an ending or a beginning. Solon broke the silence. He is gone. But he left it with you. Darren looked down at the crown in his hands. It felt heavier now, though it weighed no more than before. The voices inside it whispered faintly, like a chorus waiting for him to speak. Myra's voice trembled. Do we go now? Or do we sit upon the throne first? Bram's eyes darted nervously. I say we leave. Before the whole hall falls apart on our heads. Leanne shook her head. No. The Skeleton King said the throne carries guidance. If Darren sits, we may learn what we must do next. All eyes turned to Darren. He hesitated. His heart pounded, for he knew this choice mattered. Slowly, he stepped toward the throne. The cracked seat still glowed faintly, as if waiting. He climbed the steps, every footstep echoing through the empty chamber. He sat upon the ancient stone throne, the crown still in his hands. The moment he settled, the hall changed. The carvings on the walls lit up with light. The bones scattered across the floor glowed like stars. A wave of energy pulsed through the chamber, not violent but steady, like a heartbeat. Darren felt himself pulled inward, into the crown itself. He was no longer in the throne room. Instead, he stood on a vast plain of light. All around him were figures made of shining mist, men, women, children, warriors, kings, workers, and more. Thousands upon thousands, stretching as far as his eyes could see. They were the people of the Skeleton King's world. Their faces were kind, sad, and hopeful all at once. One stepped forward, a woman carrying a staff. Her voice was like music. You are the one chosen. You carry our memory now. Do not let us be forgotten. Another, a child with bright eyes, spoke. Tell our story to your kind. Let them know we lived. That is enough. A tall warrior knelt before him. Use our strength when your spirit fails. Call, and we will remind you of what it means to endure. The voices rose together, not shouting but singing, a song of sorrow and hope. Darren bowed his head. I will not forget you. I will carry your memory. I will honor your gift. The light around him grew brighter, wrapping him in warmth. Then, slowly, the vision faded. He opened his eyes. He was back in the throne room, still sitting upon the great chair. His crew watched him with wide eyes. What happened? Myra whispered. Darren's voice was steady but filled with awe. I saw them. All of them. They are not gone. They are with us now. Solon stepped forward. Then we are not just ourselves anymore. We carry them too. Bram rubbed his face. This is too much. Too big. We are simple travelers, not kings. Darren rose from the throne, holding the crown high. Maybe. But sometimes the stars choose simple travelers. And when they do, we must answer. The light of the crown dimmed to a steady glow, no longer blazing, but still alive. The throne behind him cracked once more and then fell silent, its glow fading. Its purpose was complete. Lian looked toward the great doors of the chamber. Then our path is clear. We leave this place, but we carry with us more than we brought. The crew slowly moved toward the exit. Darren walked last, the crown in his hands, the whispers of the ancient voices steady in his mind. As the doors closed behind them, the throne room darkened, falling back into silence. But it was no longer the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of rest. The Skeleton King was gone, but his people would live on in the memory of humanity. And in the crown of bones that now belonged to Darren. The storm of dust followed them as Darren and his crew rushed through the collapsing palace halls. The stones groaned, ceilings cracked, and great columns of bone fell one after another. The throne room behind them shattered, and the echoes of the Skeleton King's voice faded into silence. The ground shook as if the entire world was finally letting go of its long-held breath. Darren clutched the crown close to his chest as they ran. It pulsed with faint light, warm against his hands. His heart raced not only from fear of the collapsing ruins but also from the heavy truth that the Skeleton King had placed upon him. The crown was no ornament. It was a key, a burden, and perhaps even a weapon. Faster, Mara shouted, her voice sharp as falling stone rained near her shoulder. The crew sprinted, pushing through broken doorways until at last the pale light of the sky appeared ahead. Their ship stood waiting in the ruins, half covered in dust, its engines still warm from their landing. The crew climbed the ramp one after another. Darren was the last to enter, turning back for one final look at the palace. The grand towers crumbled, folding in on themselves. The throne room, where the Skeleton King had waited for ages, sank into the earth, leaving only clouds of ash. Inside the ship, the crew worked quickly. Mara sealed the hatch. Jorn ran to the controls. The engines roared alive, shaking the ground. The ship lifted from the cursed planet, rising through the choking dust and into the quiet sky. When at last they broke through the clouds, the stars spread before them, wide and endless. The crew sat in silence, each one catching their breath. Jorn wiped sweat from his forehead and laughed nervously. We should have died back there. I thought the whole world would bury us. It almost did, Mara said, still watching Darren. Her eyes were sharp. But what matters now is what he carries. Darren slowly opened his hand. The crown sat heavy in his palm. Its dark metal glimmered faintly, and small sparks of light traced across its surface. He felt it hum softly, as if alive. The moment he touched it again, vision surged into his mind. He saw galaxies spread like rivers of fire. He saw star maps filled with names and symbols of empires long dead. He saw battles fought in space where fleets of ships clashed until suns themselves burned dark. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, all tied to the throne that now had no king. Darren gripped the arm of his chair, steadying himself. His breath shook. It holds everything. Knowledge from ages gone. Maps to lost systems. Weapons. Secrets of their people. All of it is here. Mara leaned closer. Then it is dangerous. Whoever wears it controls not only knowledge but also the legacy of an empire that once fought humanity. Can anyone be trusted with such power? Darren looked down at the crown. He thought of the Skeleton King's words. Humans had once fought and bled to survive, not to conquer. The king had waited for someone who understood that. Darren now bore that choice. He could use the crown to rebuild the power of the fallen, or he could use it to guard humanity's future. Jorn crossed his arms. We should destroy it? Nothing good comes from cursed thrones. No, Darren said firmly. His voice carried weight, stronger than before. It is not only a weapon. It is a warning. If we destroy it, we erase the lessons of the past. Humanity must learn from the ones who came before, or we will make the same mistakes. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but no one argued further. The ship drifted beyond the dead planet, leaving behind the ruins that had waited for countless years. Darren sat quietly, holding the crown, and let the flow of visions continue. He saw hidden stations in deep space, vast libraries buried under stars, and tools that could heal worlds as well as destroy them. He realized the Skeleton King had not chosen him for strength alone. He had been chosen for mercy, for his belief that survival did not need endless bloodshed. For hours, silence filled the cabin as the stars moved across their view. At last, Mara spoke again. What will you do, Darren? Where will we go now? Darren placed the crown on the table before them. Its glow lit their faces. We will not hide this. We will bring it to Earth. Humanity must decide together how to carry this legacy. This is not my burden alone. It belongs to all of us. Mara nodded slowly. Jorn sighed, uneasy but loyal. The decision was made. As the ship turned toward the stars of home, Darren sat back, staring at the endless night. For the first time, he felt the weight of not just one world but many. The Skeleton King's throne had ended, but its shadow stretched far into the future. Humanity now carried a torch that could light the way or burn the galaxy once more. Darren swore silently that he would do everything to keep it from burning. He remembered the look of the skeleton soldiers vanishing when he spoke of mercy. He remembered the fading words of the king, "At last, humans return." He understood now. Humanity was not only a survivor of wars. They were heirs to forgotten empires, and the galaxy would soon know their strength once more. But this time, strength would not mean endless conquest. It would mean wisdom, unity, and the courage to choose a better path. The stars stretched before them, brighter than ever. A new dawn had come. The throne room of bones had fallen, but its gift lived on. And with it, the name of humanity would rise higher than it ever had before. Darren leaned back in his chair, the faint glow of the crown reflected in his eyes. "Let the galaxy remember," he whispered. "Humans do not kneel. Humans endure. Humans lead." The ship sped into the dark, leaving behind the ashes of the old empire and carrying the fire of the new.